Welcome to Tech Notice, guys. In this episode of Tech Notice, I will show you how to balance your gimbal. I have here Pilotfly H2-45 and we're gonna balance it. And now before we balance it, if you have a tripod or this little table tripod that you can mount on the bottom of the gimbal, then I recommend you do it and put your gimbal onto a firm, solid, level ground like a table or something like that, because that will massively help you. Also, I'd like to say that if you don't have this Pilotfly H2-45 gimbal, then don't worry, you can balance the gimbal the same way with other brands of gimbals. There's not much difference. The only difference with this one is because the roll axis arm is 45 degrees, you have to tilt the gimbal a little bit to get it balanced. Don't worry, I will show you in a moment how to do it all. So let's start. Now this gimbal, what I have here, is a toolless design gimbal, which means that you don't need any tools for balancing this gimbal. You get this little quick release plate with it. Also the stand in the bottom here that this gimbal is standing on at the moment. So it has a screw in here that you don't need to use any screwdrivers. It has just little like a handle that you can use your fingers to tighten it to your camera. Now the first thing you need to do is have a camera and make sure that you have a battery in the camera, the SD card in the camera, and all the equipment on the camera that you want to have on the camera, so that later when you put it on the gimbal there will be no weight difference when you add something or take something away, because we want the weight to stay the same once we put the camera on the gimbal. We have this quick release plate. Now you need to probably like a little bit try and everything with your camera, depends what camera you have, to try which hole is the right for you. So I know that with this camera I need to slide it quite forward or back, so that most of the quick release is like hanging over to the lens side. And when you put it on, make sure that it is lined up with your lens, and then tighten it up as much as you can. You can use a screwdriver to give it extra strength, tightness, but for this reason here I don't need it. Okay, now let me just put the gimbal out of balance, move all the axes so that you can see that I'm doing this right here. So now this is not balanced gimbal at all, at any way. Now let's put the camera on. You have this quick release plate over here, so make sure that you put it over the quick release function so that your camera is not sliding off. So you can either slide it from the backwards or forwards, either way. Slide it in, push the button so that it clips over, and now even when it's not balanced, my camera is not sliding off. As you can see, the quick release is holding it. Now what you need to do is, when your camera is in, rough balance the camera at first onto it so that the camera is not sliding forwards or backwards. Do a rough balance. We'll all change it later, but at the moment I can see it's falling forwards, so it's a bit lens heavy. Okay, I'll leave it somewhere around there. And the camera looks pretty okay in terms of like where it stands on the axis. On this pitch axis, it looks quite okay. It's not like really forward or really backward. So now straight away I'm gonna go to this axis here because it's way off balance. So how you do this is, now with the pitch axis, make sure that like your arm that goes through the pitch axis is horizontally. And now when this axis moves that way, it means that it's heavier on that side, which means we need to move it to the other side. And if it would be moving that way, that means that it's heavier on this side and we would need to slide it that way. So now open up the joint and I can see that it's sliding that way or backwards. So now I need to slide it that way. Okay, let's slide it a little bit. It's still moving that way. Still moving backwards a little bit, but now I'm gonna actually change it on the camera. Okay, it's moving forward, so I'd like to move my camera a little bit back, which I'm gonna do with this quick release plate here, because you can do much smaller adjustments on the camera plate. So now when I hold on to the axis and point the camera, okay, it's still a little bit heavy one way. It's perfectly balanced on that axis when I can point the camera whatever direction and it would stay there. But now when I point it down a little bit, it keeps going down, which means it's a little bit lens heavy, which means I need to move the camera back a little bit. So let's move the camera back a little bit more. Tiny bit. You don't need to move loads, just move tiny bit. Okay, moved it too much, we see. Okay, now it's perfectly balanced. As you can see, I can point it whatever direction and it stays that way. Now remember, if you don't have time to perfectly balance your gimbal, then I would say don't bother too much. Try to get it as close as possible to get the shot. But obviously try to make the balancing as perfect as possible, because the better the balancing is, the less the motors actually have to work, which means your motors will last longer and it's healthier for the motors. So that's why you need balancing. Now the next roll axis is a bit more different than this one, because at the moment it's not facing 90 degrees, this axis, to the floor. So what you need to do is tilt the whole gimbal a little bit so that it is kind of parallel with the table or floor. So now when it's parallel, you can see, I'll tilt it this way so you can see, it is moving that way, which means I need to slide the arm that way. And it's tilting quite a lot, so let's do quite a lot of shifting. Tilt it back down and let's have a look which way it is. Is it moving? A little bit more. Let's tighten up and try. Okay, that was easy. Now this axis is perfectly balanced when you can do the same thing. Point the camera whatever direction and it stays that way. As you can see, I can point it whatever way, it stays that way. If you want to do tiny adjustments, you can move the camera still on the camera first axis plate left and right, which gives you a bit more specific and more meticulous tuning of this, because when you're further away from the axis and trying to move it the same way left or right, it gives you a better result. My camera is tilting automatically sometimes because the zoom is falling out itself, so sometimes, you know, the zoom falls out. Now the yaw axis. Yaw axis is the same. You need to tilt it again. So tilt it parallel with your table or something. If you want, you can put it like on the table on the side here and then do it that way. But for your sake, I'll try to do it here like that to show you. So now when we're holding it like this, I can see that the axis is moving that way or my way, which means I need to shift it that way. So let's do it. Pull this out again. Still moving my way. Looking better, but still a little bit. So let's go a little bit more. Okay, that is really good. As you can see, it's staying this way, and if I move it in the middle, it's staying in the middle, and if I move it that way, it's staying or moving backwards just a little bit, but it's okay. It is good enough. Now, this is perfectly balanced gimbal because I can move the camera whatever direction and it stays that way. Now, I can turn on the gimbal and it's balanced. So you can see, ooh la la, my camera stays still. Just remember, don't turn your gimbal on when you don't have a camera on, because that is very straining for the motors, because they go mental because they don't have any weight on it, so they don't know. They're thinking, whoa, why there's no weight? So they're going a bit insane and they can easily overheat. Now this is perfectly balanced gimbal. If you have any questions or any tips how you balance your gimbal, then I'd love to hear from you and leave the tip or comment in the section below, because I'd always love to get better at balancing the gimbals. So I'd love to hear from you as well. This is how you balance the H2-45 Pilotfly gimbal. Also, if you have any other similar kind of gimbal that has the 45 roll axis, then you can do it the same way. Also, don't worry if you have like a Shihun crane or the H2 without the 45 arm that goes all the way in front of your camera screen, you can still do it the same way here. Just remember, the gimbal is perfectly balanced when you can point the camera whatever direction and it stays that way. Then the balance is perfect. If it's still tilting some way, then try to shift it somewhere, something. I'd say that another thing, once you've balanced them again, sometimes I go put it back and then I see that the camera is still tilting forwards or something, then don't worry, you just do final adjustments a little bit and then your camera will be balanced. And that is how you balance a gimbal. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching this video and checking Tech Notice out. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, I please ask you to leave a like in the section below, because that is awesome. Help other people to find this video as well. Like I said before, if you have any tips or tricks how you balance your gimbal, or how you have found some tricks how to balance your gimbal, then please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, any tricks or tips how to get your balancing faster. So also stay tuned for some more videos about this gimbal. If you think this video was good and you haven't seen the unboxing video, you can check out the unboxing video in the description below, and also on the YouTube card, or just go and subscribe on the channel and you will find one of the latest videos is the unboxing of this new gimbal by Pilotfly. I will be making some other videos of test footage and how to use the simple BGU on the PC and how to tune it. So I hope you subscribe. I'd love if you subscribe. Consider subscribing if you like this one. But remember, videos are coming out every single Friday, 6 p.m. and I'll see you next Friday. But if you haven't checked out the 100 subs giveaway yet, then the 100 subs giveaway is also in the section below. If you want free stuff, then check that video out. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.